Park Sung-hoon seemed destined for the top. With talent, charisma, and an appearance that conquered screens, he came to be called one of the great names of the new generation of Korean actors. But it only took a sequence of questionable decisions and controversial scandals for everything to crumble. In this video, you'll learn about the surprising and controversial trajectory of Park Sung-hoon and understand why he sank so quickly in Korean entertainment. But before the spotlights and scandals, there was just a common boy trying to find himself in a country where success is almost an obligation. Park Sung-hoon was born on February 18, 1985, in Gwacheon, a quiet city located in Gyeonggi Province, South Korea. His childhood, unlike that of many Korean idols, wasn't marked by children's beauty contests, talent shows, or early training at major agencies. In fact, for a long time, he went unnoticed. He wasn't the most handsome in the room, nor the most popular. But one thing already caught attention: his ease of expression. From early on, Sung-hoon demonstrated a curious interest in telling stories. He wasn't the type of boy who wanted to be famous. He wanted to be heard. And this manifested in small things: school presentations, amateur plays, improvised performances. It was like this, almost by chance, that he began to fall in love with theater. Not for the glamour, but for what he could feel on stage, the emotion, the possibility of becoming anyone, the freedom to say things that, outside of there, he would never have the courage to say. But following this path in South Korea wasn't easy. Being an actor, especially far from major cultural centers like Seoul, wasn't seen as a smart choice. Sung-hoon's parents, like many of their generation, wanted stability, a public job, a secure career, something predictable. He, however, chose uncertainty. After high school, he decided to study performing arts at the prestigious Donga Institute of Media and Arts, a bold step for someone who was still a complete unknown. It was in this academic environment that Sung-hoon began to transform. He dove into theatrical studies, improved his technique, and discovered the strength of his presence. But even so, he was constantly overshadowed by colleagues with more marketable faces. South Korea, with its highly standardized industry, had space for very specific types of beauty, and he didn't fit perfectly into that. This feeling of being on the margins shaped much of Park Sung-hoon's artistic personality. He didn't seek obvious roles, and perhaps that's why it took him so long to attract attention. For years, he circulated in alternative theater, doing independent plays, studying dramaturgy, and forming his critical view of entertainment. He was, deep down, a grassroots actor, one of those who prefer the stage to television. But the entertainment world is cruel to those who take too long. And despite his talent, he knew, if he didn't make a leap soon, no one would wait for him anymore. And that's when he began to change. Not just his artistic approach, but his stance toward the industry. The transition was just beginning. While many actors achieve success in their 20s, Park Sung-hoon took more than a decade to finally be noticed. And this wasn't for lack of talent, it was for lack of opportunity. After graduating and diving into alternative theater, he spent years living almost in anonymity. He acted in plays with small audiences, shared small stages with other equally forgotten artists, and faced the dilemmas of an artist who knew he was good, but didn't know if he'd ever have a chance to prove it to the world. For a long time, Korean television didn't seem to have space for him. His face, though expressive, didn't follow the standard that dominated the industry. The competition was brutal, and roles always seemed to go to the same old names: handsome young men, already known faces, or children of celebrities. Meanwhile, Park contented himself with small parts in dramas that barely gained audience. But everything began to change gradually when he decided to make his artistic vision more flexible. He gave up certain principles and began accepting smaller roles in bigger productions. This is how he appeared in titles like Six Flying Dragons in 2015 and Jealousy Incarnate in 2016. In these roles, though secondary, Park caught attention for the intensity with which he performed. Even with few minutes on screen, he left a mark. And his name, until then restricted to underground theater, began to circulate behind the scenes of Korean television. His real turning point, however, came in 2019 with the drama Psychopath Diary, in which he played a charismatic and psychologically complex villain. The audience finally saw what he was capable of doing. Park Sung-hoon wasn't just a good actor, he was a chameleon. And curiously, it was by playing dark characters that he found his space. Unlike other actors who sought hero or good guy roles, he threw himself into dark, unethical, broken roles. Perhaps it was precisely this boldness that led him to grow so fast and burn out at the same speed. After Psychopath Diary, he began to be cast for bigger projects. He gained prominence in memorials in 2020 and then participated in one of the biggest successes of recent Korean television, The Glory, in 2022. In this drama, he again played a villain, cruel, cold, frightening. And this time, not only did critics applaud him, the public recognized him. His performance went viral, and suddenly he was called the actor of the moment. But not everything that rises clean. With fame came demands. With recognition came overexposure. And with praise also came the first sideways glances from the industry. What seemed to be Park Sung-hoon's definitive consecration as an actor ended up becoming the beginning of his public wear-out. After the resounding success of The Glory, he began to be invited to dozens of events, advertising campaigns, and talk shows. But gradually, rumors began to emerge that his behavior behind the scenes wasn't the easiest. Technicians and extras reported that the actor was explosive, responded harshly, and created a tense atmosphere on sets. Although none of these accusations were confirmed with direct evidence, the buzz was gaining momentum, especially on Korean social networks, where just 2 or 3 anonymous reports are enough for a celebrity's reputation to collapse. What began as a solid growth trajectory suddenly became a succession of errors that shook Park Sung-hoon's image. In December 2024, when the actor accidentally posted on Instagram stories an adult content image that made explicit parody of the series Squid Game. The screenshot was actually a cover of a pornographic video satirizing the drama's plot, and although he deleted it quickly, the damage was already done. The post went viral in minutes, being shared with indignation on social networks, mainly for containing offensive connotations and being related to a globally popular Netflix series. The timing couldn't have been worse. The new season of Squid Game was about to premiere, and the series director, Hwang Dong-hyuk, even briefly commented, calling the episode extremely disturbing. Netflix, on the other hand, remained silent, and many fans began to question the company's and the actor's own stance. Park's agency claimed he received the content via DM and posted it by mistake, without having watched the video, but the response sounded weak to part of the public. The image of a serious and reserved professional began to be questioned. Soon after, another major controversy arose. His role as Hyunju, a trans woman in Squid Game, mobilized intense criticism on social networks. Western internet users and even some Koreans accused the production of making a mistake by casting a cisgender actor in a trans role, accusing the casting of perpetuating exclusion and harming representation. Director Hwang Dong-hyuk acknowledged the controversy, justifying that at the time of filming, it was almost impossible to find a visible trans actress in Korea. Despite Hwang's justification, on social networks many shared comments like "trans fake" and stated that the original Squid Game cast failed by not bringing a real trans actress. In South Korea, public image is almost sacred, and when an actor begins to be seen as ungrateful, rude, or arrogant, the public simply turns their back. The media, which previously exalted Park as a revelation talent, now made articles recalling his harshest moments. He began to be avoided by major brands, lost advertising contracts, and had his presence cut from important events. What's most shocking is that all this happened in a matter of months. He went from anonymity to stardom, and from stardom to rejection, at a frightening speed. And the saddest thing is realizing that perhaps he never learned to deal with success. And when he finally had the chance, he used fame as a shield instead of a ladder. What should have been the consolidation of Park Sung-hoon's career ended up becoming the beginning of an unstable and, for many, irreversible phase. After the enormous visibility gained with The Glory, Queen of Tears, and Squid Game, the actor was being considered for even bigger projects. He was the most talked about name in the industry, appeared on lists of most promising actors, and was seen as a mature talent finally recognized. But it only took one slip for this scenario to crumble, and it wasn't a small slip. The controversy involving the adult satirical video of Squid Game had direct and harsh consequences. Although he publicly apologized, the timing of the post, made during a period of national mourning due to an air tragedy, was seen as extremely disrespectful. The backlash was so negative that Park ended up being officially removed from the cast of the drama The Tyrant's Chef on TVN, in which he was already cast as the protagonist. The channel confirmed the substitution in an official note, and the decision was received with surprise and divided approval. Some thought it necessary, others considered it excessive, but the worst was yet to come. In early 2025, it came to light that Park would play a trans woman in the new season of Squid Game. Immediately, criticism arose on social networks and in the media. Cis actors playing trans characters has been a delicate topic in various industries, and in the Korean case, where trans representation is still scarce, the choice generated outrage. Many activists and internet users considered the casting offensive, calling it trans fake, and alleging that Netflix was contributing to the invisibility of real trans actresses. Even with director Hwang Dong-hyuk's justification, who stated it was almost impossible to find a visible trans actress in Korea, the damage to Park's image was already done. He found himself at the center of 2 consecutive storms, and his public figure, previously admired for talent and dedication, began to be questioned for lack of sensitivity, maturity, accountability and social responsibility. Even before the premiere of the new season of Squid Game, Park had already been discreetly removed from Netflix's promotional actions. He didn't appear in trailers, posters, or official interviews. While his castmates gained media space, he was treated as a peripheral figure. What should have been another springboard for his career ended up becoming a minefield. The consequence was immediate: frozen advertising contracts, canceled event invitations, and an uncomfortable silence from Netflix, which chose not to directly involve the actor in the series' promotional campaigns. Park, who for years desperately sought to be seen, now faced the weight of excessive visibility, and ironically, was beginning to disappear again, but for a totally different reason. Park Sung-hoon came to be seen as a risk actor. That image of a dedicated professional, which took years to build with sweat on stages and smaller dramas, was swallowed by a few months of controversy. The most ironic thing is that his talent was never in question. What failed was his ability to sustain himself under the spotlight. Park Sung-hoon's trajectory is proof that talent alone doesn't sustain a career in Korea. In a few months, he went from peak to rock bottom, victim of his own mistakes and the pressure of a fame that charges dearly. Is there still room for redemption? Comment here what you think, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. See you in the next video.